We can come back and examine that. But right now, and rightly so, the focus is on taking advantage of the carte blanche the American public has given him to go and do it right. And he talked about it as an obligation not only to ourselves now, but to generations to come. I think he has seen exactly what he has to do with the full vision that was necessary. And this president, I think, is taking full advantage and using his full authority to do what he recognizes is probably his most important single task of his presidency.
John Sununu last night. 7:14 with Don Wade and Roma. Good morning. Today's meeting of Islamic clerics in Afghanistan has ended without any agreements. An Afghan official says the meeting will resume tomorrow. The reason that this is important is that these some 600 top clerics were meeting. The Taliban was considering turning over Osama bin Laden. That was the one point. The second point was whether or not to declare a jihad against the United States if the U.S. attacks Afghanistan. Those are the two things that they were considering, and apparently they have ended their meeting today without any agreements. Now, they're ahead of us, so the meeting to resume tomorrow is not that far away. But they were anticipating a possible decision in both of those issues, whether or not to expel Osama bin Laden and under what conditions.
Obviously, they're not coming to an easy agreement. Obviously.
And we may get to talk to Bob Woodruff, who's over there in Islamabad at some time this morning. We look forward to that. We're trying to hook that up. I wanted to mention John Wayne's song. It says, well, we all came from different places, different creeds and different races to form a nation, to become as one, yet look at the harm a line has done. A simple little line, and yet as divisive as a line can get. We're coming up to 7:30, and
we have Bob Woodruff on the line.
We want to talk to Bob? All right, Cisco, we're going to talk to Bob Woodruff, who's in Islamabad. ABC's...
Hello?
Hi, good morning.
Good morning, Bob.
Good morning.
Yes, we understand you are in Islamabad, and that the top clerics there have not come to any agreement.
The border in Afghanistan, they have begun their shura today, which is this meeting of a council of clerics to try to decide the fate of Osama bin Laden and whether or not to issue a fatwa, a declaration of holy war, in case there is an attack. I just got off the phone with a foreign ministry spokesman from the Taliban, and he says he does not expect a decision out of them until probably at least tomorrow.
Does this indicate disagreement among them, or is this to be expected?
No, they just began meeting, and this is there's no indications how they lean one way or the other. Although I have to say that the supreme leader of the Taliban, who really makes the decisions, has issued a speech today, in which was read to this council of clerics, and he said that the demands for Osama bin Laden's handover are really just an excuse for the West to destroy the Taliban's Islamic State. So that coming from the top guy in the Taliban probably means that this council of clerics will go with him and decide not to extradite. But we also have some information that from the Afghan Islamic press, which is the official press of the Taliban, that they may be willing to meet with, to talk with the U.S., meet with a U.S. delegation. And in my conversation today with the foreign minister, Kandahar from the Taliban, he said that would be the best idea, and those are his words, although it has not yet been formalized, and it's unclear whether the U.S. would ever really want to talk to the Taliban anyway and sit down with them.
Bob Woodruff, you're in Islamabad. I saw your report on Peter Jennings last night, and within that you talked about the numbers of Afghans who may be fleeing to Pakistan. How many of them will be fleeing?
Well, the Pakistani government, according to their intelligence, is that they believe hundreds of thousands are now heading towards the borders of Pakistan. This would create an absolute nightmare from a humanitarian standpoint. Pakistan already has more than 2 million Afghan refugees that came here after and during the that many people. So they've closed off their borders. Iran has closed off its borders, and the aid agencies now can't get in supplies, and they told us today, they think that as the supplies begin to run out, another even bigger wave could come towards these borders. And talking to the Taliban leaders in Kandahar, in Afghanistan today, they say that 20 to 30% of all the women and children in Kandahar have now cleared out of that city, and there's no more water in the countryside, or they're running short of it, and they say that there's a huge disaster in the making down there.
Well, obviously, the world there is divided over whether Osama bin Laden is good for them or bad for them, considering the conditions under which they're living.
Well, Osama bin Laden's an interesting figure here. The Taliban initially, when he came here in '96, were not all that hot about keeping him. But then, as the West demanded over and over again that he stay, and it became clear that the West would not give the Taliban any formal diplomatic recognition, they became hardened in their belief that he needs to stay here. Now, Osama bin Laden, to many people, particularly the more fundamentalist elements, is a real hero. And he is a Muslim, and nobody would ever support a violent seizure, search and seizure operation to a snatch and grab of Osama bin Laden because he's a Muslim and the West is not. So there's some very, very here. Because on the other hand, people realize that Osama bin Laden is creating major instability in this region, and people, like everywhere around the world, want to get on with their lives and raise their families and get rid of this problem.
A real conflict.
Right. So, when will we next hear something out of Islamabad? And what you're hearing is that they'll have another meeting, but when does that start, and when might they have a decision?
The Taliban is now saying, in my conversations with them today, that they don't believe there'll be a decision out of this Council of Clerics at least until tomorrow. Now, the next big news probably out of Pakistan will be from the president tonight. President Pervez Musharraf will be addressing the nation on television this evening, in which he's expected to possibly give a little bit more detail about the situation in Afghanistan. But more, he is going to appeal to the people of Pakistan to back him in what he has decided to do in cooperating with the United States and try to convince them that this is the best course for Pakistan and try to tamp down some of the potential civil unrest that's sure to rise up here in the next days and weeks or months ahead.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Bob Woodruff, for a great update.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Bob Woodruff is ABC's reporter in Islamabad, obviously having a little bit of difficulty with that satellite phone, but it's good to get the information as it's happening.
As worrisome as it is.
And this isn't all over if there is any kind of demonstration going on in the streets. It's interesting. I know that the reports that I've seen are the difficulty is that a lot of the people within the armed forces there who would be called out to control those people demonstrating in the streets are about of the same economic strata, the same age area. We're talking about the same economic and age demographics as the people they're trying to control. So there's a fear that if they have to call out any military to control demonstrators, if they come out in large numbers, we're talking in the hundreds of thousands, if that were to develop, there could be a potential for an overthrow of authority, since there would be a lot of those sympathetic within the military toward the demonstrators. And it's all very complicated, and that's why a steady hand is necessary at negotiating with all of these people, all of these international relations. And thank God we have some people who've got some experience and are doing a pretty good job. Cisco, I'm sorry we interrupted your news.
Don't be.
Bob Woodruff was on the line, and that was all we could do.
Oh, that was fantastic. It was good to hear from him and get the update.
Yeah. All right. So we have to do the break, or oh no, we're going to you.
Well, all right.